Once again, I begin this meeting with a call for greater civility. This time I call upon myself. The action in question, stifling the comments of a young person, which I have apologized for, and I wish to explain my reasoning, however faulty it may appear. I know it's hard, or at least unfamiliar, for someone to get up to the microphone and speak. I recall the first time I came to the Select Board to speak many years ago, and there was emotion and great unfamiliarity, and so when I heard this person's heartfelt commentary, I thought that they would benefit from knowing in real time that their desire to cut the library hours had been heard. And I hoped that in cutting short the commentary, it would be a relief. My actions were not well received, and once again, I apologize. Are there managers' comments?
Yes, a few things. First of all, a thank you to the Daughters of the American Revolution for the donation of a little free library that's been installed at Living Memorial Park on the path leading to the playground. The DAR will be keeping that library stocked with new and used adult and children's books. Thanks to them. Due to the budget process, the town has not had the time to do its usual quarterly committee appointment process. However, this will begin at the May 20th Select Board meeting. Please know that if you've applied to sit on a committee for the town, that your application has not been forgotten. It's just been set aside until we started up this process, which will be on starting on May 20th. The town clerk asked me to remind everyone that the dog warrant for unlicensed dogs will be going before the Select Board on June 3rd. Please note that if your dog is on that warrant, $100 tickets may be issued for those unlicensed dogs after that has been approved. Similarly, there'll be a fine for $100 starting May 23rd for anyone who has not paid for their business license yet. Licenses were already due for renewal on March 15th, but you can still renew online at brattleboro.gov. If you need help, please call the assessor's office at 802-251-8156. The Select Board, just a reminder, the Select Board has scheduled a special representative town meeting on Tuesday, May 27th at 6:30 p.m. at the Brattleboro Union High School gym. And prior to the special representative town meeting, there'll be an informational session that'll be held at 7 p.m. on Wednesday, May 21st at Academy School. Each district will have a caucus beginning at 5:45 p.m. that same night to appoint members to any vacancies that they have. And a final announcement is that the Garden Shed Tool Lending Library will reopen tomorrow, and people can contact the library or check the website for the hours and inventory. That's all I have.
Thank you. Are there Select Board members who have comments or committee reports? Yes?
I have one. I just want to wish everybody a happy International Workers' Day. Right now, as we meet, there are hundreds of people just up the street at the Common demonstrating in solidarity with workers around the world and against fascism. So appreciate folks who are making their views known. I also wanted just to celebrate the release of our fellow Vermonter Moshe Modawi, who was wrongfully detained, and he was released this week. Just looking in terms of Brattleboro, I'm excited about the green up and cleanup days that have been happening. I want to thank Amanda Thurber for letting me know about some cleanup efforts that happened this past weekend down at the bridge that we got to work on, the old Hinsdale Bridge. And also there's been some work that Groundworks and the Brat team and others have been other agencies have done that we got invited to that was at the Prospect Cemetery. And then there's a Green Up Day coming up that Subaru is hosting, and that will be happening. They have information on Subaru's website about that. And it's a good community building opportunity. Well, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I got an email today that said it may also be World Password Day today, so if that's helpful information for anyone. And then I'm still not totally sure how to talk about this. I took a ride along with the BPD last night with Officer Lopez, and it was a fascinating, intense experience that I'm still thinking about. And, I probably saw more human tragedy in that 4-hour period than I did personally in the month of just private life before that. In that 4 hours of experience, the officers I saw were incredibly patient, I think doing their best to do a very difficult job. I think saw at least one dead body, not me, the officers saw at least one dead body that night, bad injuries, a collision, people being just intoxicated, unable to walk, being taken to the hospital. I really don't know how to put it into a complete thought yet, but I'm appreciative to the police department for the experience. Officer Lopez was a great companion, and it's an experience that's open to anyone. So I encourage people to take them up on it. It was intimidating and intense, but worthwhile. So that's all.
Thank you, Oscar. Anyone else?
I'll add one thing. In addition to Vermont Green Up Day, which actually is my favorite day of the entire year, you can pick up Green Up bags in West Brattleboro, over by the West Brattleboro Common. I can't remember the other neighborhoods, but it's really worth spending some time picking up trash in our wood side of our roads and stuff. It's Vermont Green Up Day. The other thing is, but also at 10:30 in the library community space, our legislators will be here for community conversation. Great time to touch base with them on things that are important to you. So that's from 10:30 to 12 at Brooks Memorial Library. Thank you.
This Saturday.
That's this Saturday, Saturday, May 3rd. Also Green Up Day, also First Farmers Market Day, also probably a slew of things, cool things.
Thank you, Amanda. All right. So, public participation. Yes. Mil, I can't even say. Millicent.
Millicent Cooley, District 9. I'm on the Finance Committee, but I'm not speaking for the Finance Committee, it's for myself. I'm requesting that the Select Board, when there is a chance, we get through this intense budget time, set a meeting agenda item to discuss and agree on how we understand the impact of the recent police spending.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Of the what?
Of the recent spending on the police department. How do we understand the impact of that? And, considering the effect on the budget and so forth. I think I've gotten an email recently, somebody said, give this a chance, which I think is very reasonable. It's just vague. And I think that it would be good to know, are we looking at data? Are we looking at opinions from certain groups of people, like the downtown businesses, other people? How do we think about the impact and what's happened with that?
Thank you.
So that's it. Thanks.
Yes, Ray.
Gotta pull up my piece, sorry. Hi again. Ray Carpenter Ranquist, Brattleboro resident and BUHS student. I do want to say thank you for the apology. I would like to finish my statement from the other night, Thursday, April 28th. So, as I was saying, you talk so much about the substance abuse issues in town and how you want to protect kids from all of that. And yet you were discussing the idea of limiting one of the few free, safe locations for youth in the area. With hours of presentations about police action and presence in town for the purpose of increased safety, I'd like to know, what are you actually doing to create safe spaces for teens and youth? I don't hear much problem solving that is centered around promoting health, connection, well-being, and community for teens. If this seems like a big, open-ended ask, here are a few tangible examples. We need safe locations that are open into the evenings and on weekends, places that we can gather comfortably, safely, spend time with friends, and just chill. We need a variety of activities, workshops, and programs. This could include movie nights, craft sessions, paint and soda sips, game nights, cooking contests, skills workshops, even partnering with local businesses, things like mechanics, woodworking, how to change the oil in your car, etc. The possibilities are literally endless, and most of them would be low cost or self-sustainable. We already have effective, engaging, successful programming for kids and adults in our community through our recreation department. Now we need to fill in the gaps for teens. I would like to reiterate my strong request from April 8th that you consider having teen representation on this select board. The school board has school representation, student representation. Teens ages 16 and up can and do vote locally, and we can offer different perspectives on life in Brattleboro. Obviously, there are some logistics that would need to be worked out, but I hope many people will agree with me that a wider range of voices would have a significant positive impact on the process by which the Select Board makes its decisions. I appreciate you for allowing me to speak this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Ken.
Ken Fay, District 8, sorry. I'd like to piggyback on what Millicent said about looking into the increased police spending. Specifically, the increase was due to an emergency. And is there going to be a declaration of when the emergency is over? What that would mean and what that would entail? It seems to me people are very happy and about the results of the downtown safety plan. Perhaps the behavior of the people who the ordinance was going to be affecting, maybe that behavior has been changed or is changing. So I just wanted to throw that out there and to be considered. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak on something that's not on tonight's agenda? All right, then, let's begin.
Madam Chair, we just had a hand pop up.
Oh, sure.
I think it's Charisse.
Very good. Welcome.
Hello, I'm Karis, formerly known as Carissa Bruton. I would just request that in the discussion of the budget redevelopment that you come back to your proposal on cutting the hours. We're reducing the hours of the sustainability coordinator position and do the math on the monetary and the community value that position brings in. And my position is that positions like that should be invested in because they are forward-looking that will get us our focus on things that'll get us through some of the challenges that we're experiencing as a society. So I just request that you reconsider that proposal.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's begin. On regular business, the FY26 budget redevelopment. And I'm hoping that we've all thought long and hard about all the factors that constitute our municipal government, and that we could come together to work together and take action and be mindful of our responsibilities. So I would like to introduce John Potter to present the latest budget.
Okay. Thank you, Liz. So as you mentioned, this is the 8th meeting we've done on the FY27 budget redevelopment. April 1st, you had an organizing conversation. April 8th, you did a listening session at the library. April 10th, you had a general discussion and talked about a schedule. On April 15th, you considered the Finance Committee report and discussed structural budget issues. On April 17th, you discussed revenues. You reviewed the previous cuts that the last select board had made. And you considered service reductions to services other than in public safety. On April 22nd, you discussed service reductions in public safety. And on April 24th, you discussed solid waste and preliminary numbers for a budget. So we took all of that and brought back a proposed budget here, which I have to admit, in the rush to put this all together, I had written this memo and then got the numbers afterwards. I had to go back and fill in the placeholders, and I missed that in the first couple of memos that went out to you, but it is now the corrected memo. I know you all have before you, and is also what Seth has posted on the website. So at your April 24th meeting, your last meeting on the budget, the board made several cuts and restored funding for the bus service. Then the board asked staff to find an additional $317,000 in reductions, but without really giving us further policy direction around that. We got together as a team and tried to figure out how to close that gap, and ended up doing so actually a little bit better than that, and I'll describe what that constitutes in a minute. So in attachment A to your backup materials is the draft budget. And in that, the total expenditure is a total of $24,971,305. That is an 8.3% increase over FY25. The property tax needed to balance that expenditure is $19,620,094. And that is a 10.8% increase on the municipal tax that was levied in fiscal 25, this fiscal year. Together with the school taxes, it would be a total dollar increase on the property tax bill of $2.1 million, which is a 5.6% overall increase on the tax levy for fiscal year 26. To get to this $19,620,000 number for municipal taxes, the select board approved a total of 6 staff positions to be eliminated or reduced, and staff have suggested one more. That was part of the package that the staff came back with. And that will constitute a savings of just over $500,000 in the FY26 budget and will carry into the following fiscal year. Those positions were the assistant town manager for savings of $140,600 or so, the IT coordinator for a savings of around $98,000, the police data specialist, $91,000, the police emergency services dispatcher, taking one of those positions from a full-time to a part-time role with a savings of almost $57,000. Rethinking the accounts payable clerk to be a finance clerk in a part-time basis, and that is a savings of almost $58,000. A reduction in the sustainability coordinator to a part-time role for a savings of $44,578, and rethinking the how we're going to provide financial services, so reducing the cost around the finance director by about $14,000. So that is a total of $504,000 in staff cuts or reductions. The select board made most of those, as well as other reductions, at your April 17th and April 24th meetings, and staff made the additional reductions as requested. These are summarized in a table that's provided in your backup materials, and in this it shows by department where those reductions took place. So about 25% of an overall $711 million reduction came out of the fire department budgets, 21% came out of police department budgets, 20% came out of the town manager's budget, 15% came out of the HR finance departments, 14% came out of public works, 4% out of the library, 1% out of the assessor's office. And the actual reductions are all given in your backup materials. I wanted to just cover for you the reductions or the types of reductions that the staff was able to find and then implement into this draft budget. And those were things like we deferred the $141,723 to the ambulance fund. And essentially, our ambulances are new. We will have to amortize that over a longer period. But we think that that's a good reduction now for this year. $100,000 in the delaying the intersection work that DPW was going to do. You had a conversation about that, and we decided at that time not to take that. But upon further examination, DPW staff felt that given some of the big projects happening in town over the next year, like the state paving and the Melrose Bridge work, that there would likely be a delay on implementing these intersection projects anyways. So the $80,000 that's remaining in there would be enough to get us to the next step, and then we'll have to make a decision about when to do them in the future. A police vehicle will be pushed out at least another year on replacement. That's a savings of $89,000. The reduced dispatcher position that I mentioned earlier, $57,000 reduction in the police department. The car 2 at the fire department, if you'll recall, in previous conversations, you split that between fiscal years for a $37,500 savings, and the fire department offered that they would like to just fully push that out to a replacement in July 2026. So that would be another $37,500 of savings. The assessor's office offered $5,200 in reduced software fees that could be covered by the assessor's fund. Reduced advertising in HR finance and eliminating employee recognition for a total of $10,000. A number, like 11 reductions at the library, totaling $27,000 across many of their supplies and books and things like that, but no staff reductions in the library and no hour reductions in the library. That was 4% of the overall reduction in the town. And then finally, a few other small items in the assessor's office where we were able to find some reductions in professional services, training, and office supplies. So the revised FY26 budget is attachment A in your backup materials. We were also able to put together a projection for FY27. It's not perfect, but it's a start. It's looking at what's the follow-on costs to the town as we move into FY27. This is a preliminary estimate. I should note that there's assumptions built into that. Among probably the most significant one is more or less continued austerity in the capital fund budget. That's something that this board may want to examine as we get into the fall and talk about this, and we'll certainly go through what that's doing to the capital plan. But I think overall, we're starting to get we've got some expertise on the financial services side right now, and we're starting to implement a number of best practices. That is a little bit of growing pains. We saw at your last meeting that, we're learning things that we didn't realize before. So that's good. It's setting us up to do a really good job on the FY27 budget. And that's pretty much everything I have. I'm happy to answer any questions or go through the budget or the capital plan if you want. It's up to you.
Great. Thank you, John. Okay, so here's how I suggest we proceed. I ask for a motion, and then any board member who has questions for John can ask them about the budget. Then all board members have an opportunity to make a statement about the budget and their feelings on the budget. And then we'll ask for public input and then we'll come back to the select board regarding that motion. Sound good? Go ahead.
So let's say a board member wanted to propose a change to the budget. Where would you?
Well, you
See
might
that
want to
then?
start
During
with a
questions?
question.
Got it.
Yeah,
That sounds good.
great. So, would anyone like to make a motion?
So like, as presented and later amended?
Well, we could start with as presented.
All right. I will motion that we accept the new budget as presented.
Thank you, Peter. All right, questions for John? I see Oscar has one.
Yes. Well, so I was looking through, do we have, I know we decided we wanted to put 10K into the emergency fund. Is that in here, or, I wasn't sure where to
Yes.
look, but I wasn't.
Yes, I'll draw your attention to the town manager's office. I inserted a line called reserve contingency, which you can use this year and in future years to park funds there.
Got it, okay, perfect. And then just to clarify, because I was sort of asking you about this before the meeting, in page 9 of the budget, computer equipment maintenance, the reason that's 169 instead of 76 is because that's where our estimate for the contracted IT services is going, right?
That's right, yeah.
Okay. Well, the three things I think we should, that are on my mind to discuss at whatever point we think is appropriate. There are the two big decisions about the 3 fire positions that I think we should check in with and make sure we're all settled on. And then the option we chose for the assistant town manager, we chose, option no position. And I thought that would be worth at least discussing to confirm. And then I would like to ask the board, well, to see if there's interest in reconsidering the sustainability services decision in light of sort of the new information and that we've received over the weekend about the output and value of the position. So those are my 3 topics.
Very good. Shall we create a list? Other people have other questions? And then, or do you want John to answer them now and have that discussion now? I just want to
would-
see if there's more questions.
I think it's a little bit more cogent if we ask and answer.
Very
So-
good. Okay. John,
Yes.
can we start a discussion about the fire positions?
Sure.
I know we have had a discussion about the overtime and the reason for the overtime, and, but would you like John to tell us again, like, if we hire 3 people, then the overtime would be reduced to a certain number? Is that what you
No,
want to go over?
that's more of a question for the board. I just want to check in. We made this decision, I felt like sort of provisionally last time. So I just wanted to check in one more time. I guess the only reason I'm a little hesitant is that the numbers are fairly fresh, and the possible downside is we hire 3 new positions. It doesn't do what we want with the overtime. We end up not saving what we think. Perhaps if the overtime is attributable to something that this doesn't solve, and then we end up in a position with 3 new positions locked in and still an overtime problem. So I just wanted to have a little discussion about that, or at least to check in with the board that, yes, everyone's set, this is the route we want to go. I think that's the way I'm leaning, but
Okay, so do other people want to comment?
Well, I mean, I hear what Oscar's saying. I think, we've been presented with some information with regards to why hiring 3 people will save us hundreds of thousands of dollars. And if that works out that way, it's going to look like a pretty good decision a year from now. But, if it doesn't work out that way, it won't look like a very good decision. And I think, there's a lot of variables in that. But, I mean, overall, am I comfortable with the way this was presented? I'm learning a little bit more on how shifts run and things like that. But, not enough to weigh in on it and sound smart today about it. But, yeah, I mean, so I'm comfortable with that as that was presented, me personally.
I would like to learn more about this, and I agree with both Oscar and you, Fish, on this. I think one thing that I am interested in learning is, what would be I'm not interested in our putting more on our firefighters in terms of stretching them any further, because we heard about people going 9 months without a vacation and working 56 hours a week and then having overtime. I mean, it just sounds like too much. And so I really appreciate that we're looking at how we can take some of the burden off of our firefighters. I am interested to hear what is the impact on service if that was 2 positions instead of 3 positions, for example. And if we're up for talking about that now, we can talk about that now, or talking about that when we're looking at FY27. But I understand it is easier to, rather than having to cut a position later, looking at the outset. I'm curious if we heard from the chief that it could mean that if all 3 ambulances were out, for example, and there was somebody who needed help, that it would take longer for that person to get services. If that's in 1 or 2% of the cases, and there is, that seems like a valid consideration when we're looking at such a big budget increase.
Yeah, I seem to recall the fire chief's testimony regarding this, and you're right, Isaac. The inability to hire is what has caused the overtime, and not only the overtime, but the pressure on vacations and so forth. And so I feel that there's 2 parts to this discussion. It's like the humanity of the workplace and the way that the union rules require manpower. And so both of those items need to be respected. And I think both of those items can be solved with the hiring. And John, do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, no, I mean, maybe just that, these firefighters work really hard. They were over at a mutual aid call in Winchester all night the other night. Some of those things are beyond our control. Like, we don't know when we're going to get called to another town. The one thing we can work on is covering those wellness days and the vacation days so that we're able to approve vacations. So that's what these 3 firefighters would really help us do. Beyond that, we have no control over if somebody gets injured and then, they're on the payroll, but we have to fill their shift with somebody. And that's part of the problem that we've had this year is filling people who are out. And that's really beyond our control. I mean, we can't really do much about that. It's a cost, it's a risk. We put an overtime number in this budget that we think is reasonable for what the chief is estimating as callback needs. But again, a lot of this it's emergency response, and things happen beyond our control. And we have to just, unfortunately, live with that sometimes.
Amanda, you didn't weigh in. Do you have an opinion about Oscar's question?
Well, attrition is constant in the workplace, and Windham County's got like a 2.4% unemployment rate. So hire kind of if you can. So if we can, we should hire, because for all the things you said.
Great. Peter?
Yeah, so, to the point about overtime and given the line of work, and Oscar, sort of opened up the meeting talking about his ride along with the police department and what he saw in the short 4 hours in which that he saw it. I think when we are looking at these first responders and these positions, I think we have to really remember that there's a humanity level to all this. I've had occasion to work with an organization out of Bellows Falls, helping them out and volunteering a little time, called Frontline Foundations. And they exist solely to kind of counsel our first responders, get them back to a place of wellness after this. And when the chief was telling us 9 months with no vacation and going through the stuff that they have to go through. I mean, I saw them, there was a car fire this morning in town on the tracks, and just how they converge on that. And, you know, the heart rates, even though this is there every day, probably go up. And, you know, the thought of letting, you know, not being able to save the life. In fact, in these meetings, when I met with these people, a couple of key things from EMTs and paramedics were that the frontline foundations were people, let me try to remember this, it was healers who need healing and savers who need saving. And organizations like the Frontline Foundations help them with that. So I think when we're thinking about three new people to kind of alleviate some of that, I'm not comfortable putting a price tag on it. You know, even though I understand it's got to be paid for, but I think we sort of owe it. But you know, again, you know, we'll have to answer to it a year from now, and we'll either hit it, or we'll get close to it, or it can go left, because there's a lot of mitigating factors. But so I just kind of wanted to put that out there, that I think the 3 additional people is what they say we need, and I kind of trust them on that front.
Great.
I'll also say, I remember Chief Simon said that the overtime rate for fire is something like 2.1%, which is higher than other careers or disciplines. And so that's really noteworthy, that if you build that up, that's a very high dollar amount.
Yes, and I think, you know, the other side to Peter's line of thinking is that there is also a cost savings because of reducing the overtime.
Right.
But I think, that's
Yeah, and
our discussion.
I have
Go
those
ahead.
numbers if you want them.
Please.
So to hire the 3 additional firefighters will cost about $292,000, but it will reduce overtime by $444,000, and that's a $152,000 savings over what we would have to spend, what we're projecting we would have to spend. So.
Oscar.
These are all very fair comments. I just want to bring it back around and say that the reason that we're talking about this in the first place is because it was presented to us as a solution to the overtime and the budget problem. If money were no object, we would fund all these departments to the fullest, because everyone's working hard and working overtime, and those are stressful jobs. But I think the scenario I want to be careful of is the one where we consider it because it's a savings, and then we do it because it's a savings and because it's good for the department, and then we come back at the end of the fiscal year and find out, well, the numbers, it didn't really save us money. It actually cost us a little bit more, but it's been good for the department, so we're going to keep it. And then we get into this situation of, the painful situation of, we've made a decision that's incredibly hard to undo. So I'm not really suggesting we do anything other than be very aware of that. And if we're back here in a year and it doesn't look like the numbers work out, that we are ready to reconsider and possibly walk the decision back, maybe slowly by attrition or something like that. Because I know there are people out there who worry that every time the town adds a position, we're just adding another sort of irrevocable brick into the budget. So that's, yeah.
So are we all comfortable then with that decision? Do we need to have a vote on it?
Is there any way we could have assurance from the public that we won't get yelled at 6 months from now?
Well, that's a whole different meeting on a whole different day on a whole different line item.
I wouldn't mind hearing from the public before final votes on stuff, just so we have a chance to have our minds
All right.
changed, but it doesn't have to be step by step.
Great.
And those positions are in your draft budget, so voting on the budget would be voting for those positions.
Yes.
All right, now your next one was the assistant town manager.
And this is a similar one, just checking in that that's the decision we all want to make because it's a big one.
Well, I think I'm sorry, Liz, didn't mean that.
Go ahead.
I think that's when we talked to this guy about, and hopefully he answers us honestly and tells us that he needs it or doesn't need it, or, I mean, I know he needs it. We know he needs it. But, you know, how much can we throw on him? And is he comfortable with
Well,
that?
you know, I think that, of course, it would be valuable, but John is willing to, in the interests of our budget and everyone having a share, he's willing to forego the position. It's going to have repercussions for us. But I think if we can do whatever it is that we do throughout the year to increase revenue, like some of Peter's and Amanda's ideas, you know, if we come up with some money, maybe we could rethink it throughout the year. But I think what John has done, and I know he wants to talk about it, is it's more than a gesture of his goodwill towards the budget.
So a few.
Point of order?
Since we only have 3 minutes to talk, and you're talking about positions, it would be great if we could have talked about the fire positions first with the public, then the assistant town manager, and then the climate coordinator. I think, because I certainly have a comment on at least two of the
Yes.
three.
Well, you know what? We decided we're going to have our questions and then open it up to the public.
So you're going to give me 6 minutes when I come up and talk about
Each
the fire and the...
You just go right ahead.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think I'm a little nervous about it. I would say that I'm going to come to you on Tuesday with a financial services solution, which I hope that you'll support. It's in this budget. That will cover a good chunk of what the assistant town manager used to do on the budgeting side, and I think with really good expertise and help there. So that's a big chunk of those services that were provided. I would say the rest are exactly what Liz is saying, that you may have to alter your expectations a little bit about what we can produce in terms of information or pushing projects forward, that kind of thing. However, it will also be burdening the department heads, who some of that work will fall to them, and they are already pretty loaded. So again, that will be like having to manage expectations around all of the enterprise. So but I would just say this is one you may want to reevaluate after a year and see how it's going. Is that something that is sustainable, or is it something that you want to rethink?
Any other comments on the town manager, assistant town manager position from the board?
I want to share just appreciation for John. I appreciation for this budget, appreciation for knowing that you're not going to have a town assistant town manager for the next year. And I sincerely hope that as a select board that we can be of assistance in researching special projects, in outreach, and really like whatever you need. Use us at this time, because that's why we're here.
Thanks, Brenda.
I
Isaac?
echo that appreciation. Also, you and the staff putting this budget together in just a very compressed amount of time, and doing really hard work. So thank you for that. I supported at our last meeting, I voted in support of reductions in both the planning department and the town manager's office, with the idea that we spread reductions across the departments. I do have concerns about the idea of cutting essentially the core of our administration in this building that's going to, increasing the services that we're providing in the community, but at the same time cutting in central positions that are coordinating and supporting that really important work that happens out in our community. So I will say that, I support that with reservations.
That's fair.
All right, the last is the sustainability coordinator going to halftime. Oscar, do you want to say any more about that to lead the discussion?
I can't really remember exactly what I said already, but basically, we all looked at some numbers. To my eyes, even when you look at purely the financial piece of grants and future grant opportunities, to me, the case is very nearly made, and we have this whole time been looking at the position largely just in those terms, and I think that most of the services provided are not grant writing. They are supporting community initiatives and doing all kinds of the fuzzy things that are harder to sum up, but are valuable. So when you combine that with the financial piece, I'm not going to dig in my heels. I'm not going to kick and scream, although this is a position that means a lot to me. So I'm just, respectfully asking the board if any minds have changed, if people are interested in revisiting in light of the extra info we got, and that's all.
Anyone else want to comment? You want to comment on that, Amanda?
Over there. You first, I
Well, you're all very polite, and I appreciate that, but someone has to speak.
We're at the far end, so both of us go. And then it's like, which one?
I've heard from a number of members of the public on this who have expressed real support for the sustainability program and really see the value of it. When I voted for reducing that to a part-time position, my thought was that this is all the departments need to be giving up something, and thinking about that we were going to be seeing personnel reductions across departments. And this is going to be part of a comprehensive reduction. It's not what's in this new budget that we're looking at. I realize there are real challenges in coming up with reductions across all departments in a week. So I'm conflicted about this and would be interested in hearing what other board members and the public have to say about it.
Amanda?
Well, like I said at our last meeting, there's things that we want, but we can't always have everything we want. And this is one of those tough situations. I think a compromise of something rather than an elimination of a position is really important. And, budgets are about compromise, so, that's on the table too. It's a tough one, and that's where I stand.
I think that we have to look at our town's response and our town's efforts for sustainability. And the town as a whole, the town administration is totally committed to looking for sustainable actions and sustainable spending. And every department head is focused on what the most sustainable alternative is in everything that they do. And so moving this position to part-time and will only really reinforce each department head's resolve, and that, the part-time position is assistance, but really the focus of sustainable practices within this town happens in each department, and that will continue.
So what we're seeing unfold here is kind of everything that I've been kind of saying is when you cut a position, the position goes away, the financial responsibility of that position goes away, that job's responsibility doesn't necessarily go away. I was with Oscar in not supporting the change, and I'm throw a little bit of a wrench into the works here and make a kind of a wild suggestion and maybe a compromise in retaining that, because we all got that memo. We all saw the numbers. I kind of knew those numbers were there. I also, have had many conversations with many people about this position. I see its value. I see why people can also see that it can be eliminated or moved to a part-time position. But is there a capacity in which this position can be merged into a hybrid position along and say service some in the town manager's office and retain that line item with that mind, and assisting as a, I don't want to call him an assistant town manager, but maybe within that office that would allow sustainability to remain and assisting with many of the things that our former assistant town manager had to do, minus the finances. So I'm just going to throw that out there. I'm sorry I didn't have any prior conversations with anybody about that.
Oh, that's interesting.
John, do you want to comment?
Sure. Actually, we had been exploring one possibility, and I don't have a clear answer on this right now, but given the expected reduction in sustainability grant opportunities in the general fund side, we were aware of some grant opportunities on the utility side. And so we're right now investigating whether the utility budget could backfill some of the cost of the sustainability coordinator, and whether that could be justified to the ratepayers. And that's something that I think that the DPW is going to want to see the results of the rate study, which is due imminently before they make a decision on something like that. But that is one possibility of filling the gap on that position with work that could be done in the utility. And that would then come to you as part of the utility budget, and you would have to look at what the impact was on the rates, whether you wanted to cover that gap in the utility side. But that is one possibility that we've been exploring. I'm sorry I don't have a solid answer on that right now, but I just wanted to put that in your minds.
And so that would be voting for the budget as you laid it out, moving to the part-time position and seeing if there's other funds that can catch back up.
Yeah, the only gap we would have would be the percentage of benefits for a full-time position that would be allocated to the general fund would not be in this budget, but, we would have to find that somewhere in this budget.
Just a point of clarification, what is the minimum number of hours that must be worked in order for a position to receive benefits?
I think it's over 32, but I'm not sure.
So if someone works 32 hours a week, they're eligible for benefits?
If over that, yeah.
Okay, so 33, basically.
I think that's what it is.
2.5, don't be so greedy.
Okay, 32 and a half. Okay.
I don't know. Find that out.
All right.
Well, just.
I'm sorry. I feel like.
You guys doing the math over there?
I felt like he was.
What I was looking
wanted to
for
say
is
something.
there some sort of compromise where there would be a reduction without eliminating the benefits in the event that we could supplement this salary with, the hours with funds from the utilities fund?
Well, I just want to mention that the moving to halftime is a compromise. So you want to compromise on the compromise.
Well,
No, I think what Isaac is the point, and if I'm incorrect, please tell me. I think the biggest part of this line item are the benefits. And I think it's all workable if there's no interruption in that service, if I'm understanding what you're saying.
Yeah, I'm looking at this proposal around if we moved this position, this sustainability program became a part-time, partially funded by the municipal budget, and then partially funded with this utility fund. My concern is around the benefits. So that's what I was looking at. How could we address that?
And I just want to give you a reminder of the conversation that we had in our earlier meetings, and that was because, the sustainability coordinator essentially paid for himself with federal grants and sustainability and so forth, and state grants and even private grants, and that won't be happening. And so the few utility grants that John was talking about is where any movement on grants is. And so, again, I think that the town can work towards sustainability. But John, you want to?
Yeah, so a little bit more information I have now. So the hours for VEMRs, you have to be over 24 hours to get VEMRs, so that kicks in. And then
What's VEMRs?
that's the retirement, employee retirement. And then 30 hours is for health benefits. That's probably the big one. In this reduction that you did in the sustainability coordinator, the benefit savings were $19,000. So that would be the piece that we would need to fill. And I will note that we provisioned for $7,300 of unemployment payout, which would not any longer be necessary. So really, it's only a few $100s missing for benefits in the general fund if we were to backfill the 10 hours or so that it's reduced in the utility. So,
Oscar, did you want to comment?
Oh, yeah, I just, to push back a little on the blanket statement that federal and state grants will be going away. They are endangered. Some of them have gone, some of them haven't. The memo specifically calls out some clean energy tax credits that, barring something really extraordinary, aren't going anywhere. I know we can't rule that out, but
I wouldn't bet on it, but.
yeah. I think Peter's suggestion is interesting, but I think that may be getting, well, I'm interested in it. I don't know what role we would play in developing it. And like I said, I'm not going to dig in my heels, but I think there's value here. So that's why I'm sort of looking around to find a way to make it work. So.
I think I wouldn't mind dispatching the word sustainability and just getting rid of it, and let's call it what it is, raising revenue for the town. And that could be in the form of grants. That could be in the form of some of the things we discussed a couple of meetings ago, and having that inside person kind of track that and push that through. I don't know. I'm just,
yeah.
I think that there's value there. So if we make him the king of development, whatever it is, and have him focus on essentially what he's been doing, not foregoing the grants, going and doing everything he is, liaison with the community on little projects that he has, and also working and developing and researching ideas to raise revenue. Because my new broken record statement is, because if we don't come up with new ways to raise revenue, we are still going to continue to have this conversation year in and year out. So, that would be my suggestion in retaining this position, whether at Isaac's suggestion of 30 hours a week with benefits, or at the whatever his fully funded position was, and doing what I suggested along with being an assistant with John. And of course, this is all pending on how that person feels about any of that, right? So that might be.
And John.
Huh?
And how
yeah. Him. And I apologize for sort of bringing that up in real time and not calling it up, but I've been thinking about it a lot, so.
All right, are there any other people?
I would like to say something. I think we have to be very careful when we're talking about individuals that are employed in a position rather than a policy statement. We have been cautioned many times as a board about that. Because we risk exposing ourselves to cronyism, and that is a concern. This is a policy issue regarding a position. I agree with you in that, unfortunately, with our current presidential administration, the word sustainability is a red flag. So the potential to call it something else, I think, is a valid point. But I really think that we have to talk about it as a policy and as a position, but not as a, I think we're veering into dangerous territory, and that's something we shouldn't do. I also know that, for example, food bank funds that where they were able to buy milk to feed people, right? That's now gone. That funding is gone. So there is a great deal of funding that is not around, and changing the semantics of a grant. Yeah, a grant fund, a grant coordinator or something that fits the bill on many different facets, I think could be helpful to the town, for sure. So that's what I'm saying.
Well, we have something to think about, and we're going to ask the other select board members if they have other questions for John. And then we're going to have statements about the budget, and then we're going to open it up to the public. So, and then come back for a vote. So other select board members who have questions about the budget.
I mean, I don't, I'm sorry, you getting ready to go?
Go for it.
I just caught you out of the corner of my eye, sorry. I mean, I don't have anything, but the one question that I had was about the sustainability coordinator, and just wanted to learn a little bit more about the three firefighters, already knowing how I feel about it, but just had some more questions. So I really don't have anything other to say than just to thank you, John, for, sitting down with the department heads and having this extremely difficult conversation. So, and I thank you. I mean, it was better than I could have envisioned. So how you got there is nothing short of a little magic. That's all I have to say about that.
Magic and hard work. Isaac, did you have comments?
Yeah, I have a few questions. And forgive me if you already said this, but what does the asterisk mean next to part-time ER services dispatcher?
I just put that there because that is the one that the select board had not discussed or approved previously. It was on the list from the staff reductions.
Thank you.
Thanks for asking.
And then with deferring the ambulance fund, just curious, it sounds like this is basically imagining an extension of the life of an ambulance. How is that the life of the ambulance calculated in the first place? And what was the criteria? How did we decide to extend it?
Well, it is based on the expected life of each ambulance. I don't remember the exact numbers of that, but we did an analysis when we established this fund, and we figured that to replace those three ambulances, we'd need to be setting aside about $140,000 a year out of the capital fund into the ambulance fund, just like we do with the fire trucks. The ambulances are not as expensive as a fire truck, so I think that the chief is thinking that, if we had to borrow a little bit more when we actually purchase these or wait a little bit longer, it may be possible that way, or by increasing the amounts that we set aside in future years to build that fund back up. So.
Okay, so essentially it's deferring contributions to this fund.
Yep.
Okay.
While all three of those are relatively young vehicles. So.
And then I had a question about the line with reducing the dispatcher position to part-time. I understand that there are currently 10 positions, and we're looking at reducing that to 9.5
Yep.
positions. But I also saw that there was a proposed reduction in overtime for dispatchers. In fact, it was I saw it was on page 18 of this memo. It was $90,000 in overtime to $25,000 in overtime, which was a 72% reduction. And so I'm curious, how do you both reduce what is going to be the service impact of reducing both the number of staff in dispatch and also the overtime. And if there is, sorry for the staff questions, but I want you to get what's going through my head, is if we already are seeing, we're spending $90,000, or however much we've spent this year on dispatch overtime, how is it that we could afford to actually cut a position in half?
Yeah, I mean, the chief did an analysis with the HR department, and they felt like they could cover this. The reductions in overtime are, they're aspirational. Again, it comes down to things like if we have people who are out for whatever reason, we have to backfill those positions, then our overtime is higher, like maybe it was in fiscal '22. Yeah, this one is a big reduction, and I forget exactly the thinking on it, but on all of the overtime lines, we were setting an aspiration of being much lower on the overtime in next year. So,
and is the aspiration based on data, or is the aspiration more based on hope?
A little bit of both.
Isn't also the overtime also based on the new employees in both police and fire?
Yeah.
And that's really the guts of where those aspirations come from.
Yeah, and some of it is training related. Some of the department heads are looking at how we do our training and trying to consolidate that and make that more efficient so that it's not requiring overtime. There's like operational efficiencies that we're trying to find for that in all departments.
Like in-house training
Yeah,
instead of out-of-house training, things like that.
Yep, and just doing it for multiple staff at one time, and that sort of thing.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Yes?
Yep. So a question about the capital expenses. I'm looking at for instance, the delaying the replacement of these for the fire department. I'm looking on page 2 of this memo, the line that says for next to fire, the $37,500 reduction by delaying the car 2 replacement. And I heard you say that we're looking at pushing that out to July 2026. So that would be the FY27 budget.
Correct.
But when I look on page 26 of this document, looking at the projection of FY 2027. And by the way, thank you so much for putting together this pro forma budget for like what we're going to could be anticipating for FY 27. It really helps with thinking about through the planning and thinking about this year's budget coming up. But what I'm seeing is just a $40,000 more for FY 2027 than for FY 2026. So it looks like that's actually not unless that's the one increase, that's the one thing that we're looking at adding in that budget. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Where are we actually being realistic in looking at that capital expenditure, projected capital expenditures, if we're making the deferrals and delays in our equipment?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, the assumption in that next year's budget is an austerity capital budget. It's even worse than this year. And that's why I suggested you're going to want to be looking at what the impact of that is. I don't have that yet, but we will have it in the fall. If you look at the capital plan, which is just the first attachment of the memo, you'll see there that like this year, with this budget, we would be spending about $1.9 million in capital. And since we're using some fund shifts, we're taking that down to the 1.351. It was only grown in the projection by 3%. So it's saying not that we're doing less than all this stuff next year if you keep with that projection. But that's something that you're going to want to look at, and we're going to want to map out like what that does to future years beyond that and everything else. But the equipment all will change in the next fiscal year capital plan. So like you won't have all of these equipment lines here. They would be substituted with things like the fire car 2. That will now be one of them on that list for next year. Does that make sense, Isaac?
Yeah, you would. So you're saying that we're not going to need all of these same things
Right.
next year because we're taking care of them in FY26. So not all of them will be in FY27. So we could potentially get that
Yep.
expense fire car. Thank you, and not jack up the budget significantly.
Yeah, it would be, again, it will come down to a prioritization. We'll look at what else is scheduled to be replaced at DPW or police or fire or parks or wherever, and make a recommendation of a capital plan that prioritizes that appropriately, so.
Thank you.
Yep.
My only other question is back about the fire department, and I kind of rather not go back to that until everybody else has had a chance to ask questions. But
This is your shot for questions.
Okay. So what I'm trying to understand is if we were to not increase, if we were to make sure that we were staffed well enough to avoid having the overtime expenses for the fire department, and we were staffed well enough so that people were not having to not take wellness days and vacation days, meaning that people were able to get the support and take the breaks that they needed, and we were meeting all the legal requirements. What could be reduced in terms of the budget there, and what would the service impact be? Because I heard the fire chief say, if you were to not do these 3 new positions, there would be service impacts. For instance, when all 3 ambulances are out, we would rely on mutual aid, and that could delay service in, a small fraction of cases. Do we have information about what would the impact be? Understanding that we want to make sure that we're taking care of the people who are doing critical work for our town.
I mean, I think the first biggest impact would be we'd want to raise this overtime line by about $400,000. So if you were to cut $200,000 from the staff salaries, we'd want to increase the overtime by about $400,000. So that would be the first immediate impact. In terms of response, it is primarily on that's relatively small amount of time that we have 3 ambulances out where you might see an impact from not doing this. And I don't have an estimate of what that impact would be, but nor do I recall how many. I think it was under 4% or something when that happens. Maybe even more like 1% or 2% of calls. So that's probably what the chief was referring to, was those 1 or 2% of calls.
I mean, I'm not suggesting that we increase the overtime budget. I'm just trying to understand, is part of what we're doing trying to have a staff so that for that 1 or 2% of the time, we are prepared?
No, it's not directly related to that. It's more trying to cover the wellness days and the people who are not able to report to work and people who want to take vacation. It's covering those types of needs, and so it's not directly related to the calls.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
All right,
That's it.
that's it for
Thanks.
you. Anyone else have questions about the budget? That's where we at now.
This is a really stupid question, but I'm going to ask it.
There are no stupid questions.
Do any of our area towns contribute to our fire? Do they pay in at all on the revenue side for fire coverage?
Oh, other towns? No. We are
It's just
under
mutual aid?
We are under mutual aid agreements, and most of those towns are coming here and providing help to our fires, as well as us going the other way. So,
So it's mutual.
yes, mutual.
How refreshing. So you have more, Amanda? More
No,
questions?
that's it.
All right.
Liz, I'm so sorry. I had one other question on my list that I didn't see.
Yikes. Okay.
So just in looking at overtime, I want to make sure that we are understanding what the impact of some of the reductions are here. There is a 32% reduction in the Department of Public Works overtime budget. It's from 110,000 to 75,000. And I'm just curious about what the impact would be for the Department of Public Works in terms of where that might come from, and just in terms of, so people are prepared in our community for the services that might be cut.
John?
Yeah, so this one has me a little nervous too. If we have a bad snow year in fiscal '26, then we'll go over this. If we, and what that will probably mean is things like we won't be able to hire seasonal help like in the spring of '26. That would, try to cover some of the overage on overtime. Department of Public Works is very good at managing their budgets, again, and I've spoken with DPW about this. This is aspirational. We're trying to reduce the amount of spending on overtime. This is a department that is understaffed as well and has been for a while, and they have similar issues as we're trying to address in the fire department, and it's something that you're going to want to think about in future budgets as to whether it makes more sense to have people, to have extra people some of the time in order to reduce the overtime when the call is there for that, so, particularly in the winter.
Yeah, particularly in the winter, may I say something, Madam Chair? Though there are strategies that could be used, and it's clear that we are requesting austerity. So, for example, sidewalk plowing can happen maybe one side of the street in the overtime hours and then save the other side for daytime hours. And I certainly trust our department heads to make the calls on that, because clearly we have more of an austerity situation here.
John?
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Amanda, and if you'll recall, when we were talking about potential reductions in Public Works, we had raised the thought that we may want to come back with some policy changes in how we do snow plowing, which would help us meet a goal like this reduction in overtime.
All right. I think we've concluded this section of questions by select board members about the budget. Now, does members of the select board have statements that they would like to make, or overall commentary about the budget before we go out to the public? Oscar?
Sure. I have nothing prepared, but my quick comment is that from somebody who was on the other side of this process 2 months ago, I think, I am very aware that this is an imperfect budget. It's something that we made under, 2 meetings a week, high pressure in a month. It has compromises in it. It has patchwork in it. It has capital deferments in it. If we're looking for silver linings, which I am, we've committed to reviewing our capital plans and process in the summer, which will give us an opportunity to make some of these things real by rewriting our capital planning in such a way that we space things out further apart and we make it work. So the other thing is that, I kind of thought we were done a week or two ago, that we were going to go back to town meeting with about 10% and some promises about next year's budget process. Obviously, the budget errors that our new finance consultant discovered sort of changed the game for us, and we've been trying to roll with that on the fly. So, there are things to talk about in here, and I'm sure things that could be improved, but I think we have something pretty sturdy here that we can work with, that we can take to town meeting, and that can, that our town can work off of for a year. And then part of that is that we're going to come back and look at things a different way for next fiscal year. that's where I'm at.
Thank you, Oscar. Anyone else like to make a statement about the budget? Amanda?
Sure. There are some issues on the table that are continue to evolve as things do, whether it's our trash contract, trying to find some cost savings there, that is ongoing, but the current budget has the previously approved trash budget in it. If there is some savings, may I say, if there are some savings in the trash budget, which I hope there are, that's an opportunity for those funds to go into the capital fund, which is exciting and was the request by the town. So, I mean emergency.
Yeah,
Sorry,
that's right.
wrong fund. Oops,
Great.
sorry about that.
Thank you. You're complete, right?
I'm complete.
Very good. How about the other side of the non-aisle?
I
Yeah.
think I made my statement during my questions.
Very
So,
good.
I'm good.
Isaac?
I just really appreciate the public and the select board members and the staff for the process that we've been going through. I will say I have some concern about the number of items that are aspirational, because I would hate to see that result in another year of deficit spending. I think we want to be realistic in terms of our projections, but at a certain point, we have to compromise. We need to have a budget that can pass representative town meeting. I'm really looking forward to what the public has to say about the proposed budget.
Great. Well, I didn't have any questions, but I do have some comments. First, I'm glad that this reexamination of the budget has taken place, that the town manager led, and that he has created a new team with our former auditor and various members of staff. And it proves that our staff is very flexible and adaptive. We had meetings about the structural stability of the budget, and the board discussed direction going forward to provide for the reserve fund and both short-term and long-term planning, so that's a good thing. I trust that this new budget and future planning has increased accuracy, and that we have endeavored to have an FY27 estimate, which is helpful. And we also have a greater understanding of the current FY25 budget. We have a better handle on the firefighter overtime question, and we have a solution. And so I'm looking forward to monitoring all overtime, as has been discussed. I note that the cuts have been pretty much across the board, as has been requested, and that the 10.8 increase is high, but it's realistic, and it's based on the needs of our community, and it's both vital and essential for our town. I think we need to understand that the overall tax rate is a mixture of school and municipal costs, and that our municipal budget is a smaller portion of the overall tax burden on Brattleboro taxpayers, and combining those two gives us a 5.6% increase. Again, I believe that the sustainability will continue no matter what hours the sustainability position is. And I note that there are no hourly cuts to the library, no staff cuts to the library. There are cuts. And essentially, I want to highlight that this budget team that the town manager has created includes people from the finance department as well as the HR department. And I really recognize the work that was done by members of both of those departments. And I think that it shows that really there's an effective efficiency in the management of those two departments together. The good revenue ideas that have been discussed, mostly by Fish's real property goals and Amanda's solid waste goals, are commendable, and I thank them for that. And I think that as we work through the year, if any savings are realized, they can build up our reserve or go to the capital or even hire an assistant town manager. I support the innovative and progressive downtown safety action plan. I think it's critical to keep our community safe. I note that our legislators can be the real heroes in this story. We can work with our legislators for them to understand that we have an unfunded mandate that they can help rectify. And lastly, I look forward to working with the Select Board and the Town Manager on the FY27 budget in terms of best practices and examination of our town's fiscal health. So let's open it up to the public for questions. Mr. DeGray, you've already reserved your spot.
Well, I can't tell you how disappointed I am at just what happened here the last half hour. I'm here to talk about advocating for something, and you've already made your positions felt on this whole budget. Really disappointing that you should have waited till you heard from the public and what we have to say, then whether you want to talk about them, and then make your statements here. I feel like I'm going to waste my 3 minutes or 5 minutes, however long it takes me to speak, and it's not going to be heard, and you're just going to kind of move on. And I'm wasting valuable oxygen, and so is anybody who precedes me up here. I am so disappointed at what I just saw. So I want to talk about the importance of the assistant town manager's position and how short-sighted it is not to fill that position. I've heard Mr. Case talk about burnout 55 times since this budget process started. He doesn't have an assistant. You don't think you're going to fry him? It is an invaluable position. In the last 18 years, we've had the assistant town manager take over when the town manager has left us, and for an extended period of time. That position is valuable. This town has changed dramatically since I've been here in 2016, and certainly my 7 years prior to that when I was on the board and I was the chair. I realized the value of the assistant town manager, and for you not to fill that position at this time shows me that you don't realize the value. And two of you, Liz, you've been here long enough, and Peter, you've been here a couple of years. You should know better. You should know the value of what that assistant town manager brings to the town. You got an IT coordinator, it was a ghost position. You got a data specialist here, it was a ghost position. They were cut a long time ago. So you cut a part-time position in dispatch. You cut, where else did you cut? You cut the finance director is $14,000 because we hired an outside consultant who I want to give props to because I've heard wonderful things about her. So I'm really excited about that position. And we should try to hire whatever amount of money it takes. But not to fill the assistant town manager's position is so short-sighted, and you cannot wait for RTM to do it. It's not their responsibility, it's yours to fill that spot. It has value, it has always had value. And for us to go around and say, well, John, thank you for offering that up. John, if you offered it up, you shouldn't have, because you know the value of that position. You know the workload that it takes off of you, because you know the workload on you. And so for us to kind of dance around and think, well, we'll get by for a year and then we'll revisit it. That position is way too valuable to not fill. And I want you to fill it. And then go to town meeting with it. And then if town meeting doesn't want that position, then let them cut the $140,000 out for it. But don't say to them, well, if you wanted RTM, you put it in. You're the managers of the town. Know what you're supposed to do. So that I want you to put back in. And I'm really disappointed in listening to your speeches before you heard from us, the public.
Yes, Oscar?
I'd just like to respond to part of that, Dick, and say that I think we specifically left open those questions and have not taken any vote, and I think said out loud that we wanted to leave decisions and votes on those specific items open until we hear from you. I'm not making up my mind, and I am listening to what you all have to say. So I understand the frustration, but I have not made a final decision.
You could light a cigarette off me, I'm so hot.
Okay, and I will note that the last time we had a discussion, I opened it up to the public before the select board had a chance to comment, and they weren't happy. So this is a compromise, and as Oscar said, we are all open to listening to public comment. Yes, Randy?
Hi, Randy Blodgett, District 7. I'm going to second what Dick said, a little softer, but this town is a business, essentially. John gets hit by a bus tomorrow. Who's running the town? And I hate to put it that way, but every major corporation, every family business, somebody's got to be there to take in charge. Do we have somebody to take charge? We need at least a shadow consultant, somebody that knows the day-to-day, the week-to-week, that if something happens, even if you get sick for 2 weeks, that they could step in and run the town. Because can anybody here at this table run the town? Like, I don't know what happens, and that's my major question. I've been sitting here for weeks when this came up. And I agree, John's been busting his butt. The one other point I want to make, because there's a lot of people, maybe they all didn't vote in March, maybe they don't vote all the time, but they all talk. We're the third highest state for taxation in this great country. We don't want to be the first. And I see us on a path to getting there. We're not planning. I mean, employees cost money over time. Pensions are notoriously expensive. Benefits, health insurance, they're talking in Mount Pillier about, these hospitals. They don't know what they're going to do. 600-700% increases. I mean, we need to think about all these things, and there's no good answer. I do agree with that. But, somehow we need to plan. I've heard planning for 6 months now. We're still not planning. We're deferring a lot of things, and some of it on paper, I know it ends up the same way, but normally when you defer something, it costs you more in the long run. Let's please not let stuff cost more. We need to try to have a budget over the next 5 years that's zero to the rate of inflation. No more. We can't keep doing these. We need to figure a way out to manage our town more efficiently, and just make it make sense for a lot of people. I mean, we have 19% of the people that live here, according to latest data, live in the poverty rate. I mean, who knows what the new numbers are going to look like? We need to do a better job. We need to figure out, how we can do whatever we can do to cut costs. Some services over time, unfortunately, we're going to have to lose. We can't keep going up. There's no more revenue. We keep hearing that. The state, unfortunately, I don't think is going to bring any more revenue. And, I just applaud you to keep your eye on the ball and keep trying to do the best you can, but we need to do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Heidi, I've forgotten your husband's name.
Okay.
Eric?
Yeah, Becky.
Yeah.
Poor Becky does not know that I like to go to this microphone.
Another step forward.
Okay.
Yep,
There it is, okay. And my name's Eric Karen, District 7, and I will try very hard not to repeat, so I will talk fast, but hopefully I'll take something important. I'd like actually to, hey, Becky? Sit, baby. Good girl. I wish I could do that for everything. Anyway, I'd like to actually suggest something that I think will be able to save our town a significant amount of money and also maintain quality service. And I think it's very straightforward. And it has to do with the 3 firefighters that you are going to discuss hiring. I would like to suggest that you don't do that and wait, since it's almost a wash anyway. And I'd like to suggest that the board take a very deep dive for the next budget, 27, to look truly at the cost savings of stopping the EMS program that we have now, having fewer staff in that program, maintaining the good staff. Instead of hiring additional 3, you can keep some of the great people you've already trained, and that will help with the next overtime, whatever. You will not have to support 3 ambulances, both the staffs to keep them functioning and manned 24/7. You would not have to do the equipment care on that. And we seem to be increasing the costs of the EMS fire at a pretty high percentage every year. So looking at what was shown as what the cost of the alternative at rescue for a quality service at $355,000 a year, I just can't see how we couldn't save many hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I ask you to take a deep dive into that, so wait on the 3 and give yourself some time to save us all some money and keep a quality service. Thank you.
Next. Kate?
Kate O'Connor, Brattleboro. Regardless of what you folks said, I know you've made up your mind, but I want to just talk about 2 things that bugged me. One, it's not going to come as a surprise. The whole chart that ends up saying it's only a 5.6% tax increase, we're talking about the municipal tax rate, which is 10.8. I don't want anybody out in the world to confuse what we're talking about here. We're talking about our tax rate. It's 10.8%. I also want to caution anybody from quoting that it's going to be a 3-point-whatever% increase in FY27. That shouldn't even be talked about. I hope that doesn't come up in RTM. I hope that section is not on the budget. It's irrelevant, and we do not know that. I also don't feel any better about this budget than I did when I voted against it at RTM. And I want to echo what Randy said. We need to start really thinking about what we're doing in this town. And I know you tried to make cuts, but they weren't any kind of strategic cuts. And I hope when you get to FY27, which I hope you'll get to in 2 weeks, putting a plan together that you actually have to reduce how our town does business. We cannot afford it. And if I could wave a wand, I wish that the select board and our town administration would actually acknowledge that we have financial problems in this town. Because to me, that's the core of why we're not fixing what we're fixing. Because nobody who's sitting up there is really, really acknowledging it. And I'm saying this as somebody who sat up there for 6 years. I know you've heard me say that before. And I'm saying this as somebody who worked in the governor's office in Montpelier, saw 11 state budgets, and saw real hard decisions that have to be made. But they were made, and they brought us into a place we needed to be. So I hope that you're willing in FY27 to start thinking about it now. You can't wait until November. We can't be where we are now. I'd also like to ask that we see before RTM, FY25, and where we stand. We can't be not in deficit mode at this point if we're up to $720,000 in overtime in the fire department. So please show us that. So when we go into RTM, we know where we stand. We cannot continue deficit spending. So I know you're going to vote for it, but I have lots of concerns for our long-term financial health in this town that have not gone away. In fact, they've only gotten worse. So thank you.
Millicent, then Bethany.
I thought that the point made about the town manager role was a good one. But the thing that I came up here to say was that I want to support keeping the sustainability manager role. I think that if you cut the benefits and the hours to 25, the outcome of that is likely to be that he will leave because he's got a good reputation and we won't have one at all. And that is going to probably mean that we just simply won't have one at all. It's a unique skill. And In addition to, I think that the math speaks for keeping him. And also, he's done many, many things for this community beyond the municipal work that he does for the town. Window dressers program wouldn't exist in this town except for him, replacing people's windows. And, there's a list of about 15 things that he's done that are not on that municipal list as well. And they're unique. So that's what I want to say.
Bethany.
Thanks. Hi, Bethany Ranquist. Mine's sort of just a soup full of lots of thoughts, so it doesn't just follow one specific topic. First, I just wanted to tell you, John, I'm really grateful that we funded the bus services, and I let my kids ride on them regularly, so you're probably pretty safe, but I'd watch for out-of-state plates when you're walking across the street, based on the hit by the bus thing. Cost of living increase. I was talking about this recently with a couple of people. Some people are getting cost of living increase raises of around 4%, which seems really great until you look at how much everything is costing now, which if everything costs 6% more right now, even just groceries at the store, and now our property taxes are going up, it actually means that most people are getting a pay cut of around 2 to 5%. So hooray for that pay cut. That people are getting. So I just want to be aware that it might not seem like a huge amount, but it really does make a difference when the cost of living increase that people get in their pay actually still makes them lose money. Sidewalk clearing, I heard about a couple ideas about things like clearing on one side of the street or clearing some side streets. I don't necessarily want to get into that too much other than to say that I really hope that if that's the case, that it's very, very clearly published and regularly followed which streets are going to be cleared when and which sides of the street. Because if somebody is trying to walk down Canal Street on the side by the hospital and it's not that side that has been plowed and they can't see that because they walk with a cane or a guide dog, that's going to be extremely difficult. So it needs to be really clear if that's done. I want to throw out there that most textiles and uniforms are primarily made using prison labor. I'd like to request that when the police are looking at sourcing their uniforms, that they try to do that, or any of the departments, that they try to do that ethically. Understanding that costs may be higher as a result, so if it's not prohibitive, I would just like to request that that be a consideration. I have two more really quick, and then I'll be done. I'm wondering if somebody can answer, just out of curiosity, why the police department still needs $60,000 in overtime cost if we have 30 officers. That's on page 17. I want to say thanks to Isaac for remembering that there are humans in each of these jobs. And benefits are really important, especially when, not to fearmonger, we know it's been announced and going through the Senate and House right now that Medicaid is looking at some significant cuts. So if we cut somebody's position down to a level where they're no longer eligible for benefits and they can't get them through the state or they're not eligible that way, that's a significant challenge to their livelihoods. And also professionals who are looking for jobs are going to be looking for things with benefits. So I would just ask that when we're looking at cutting things to part-time, that we look at keeping people above 30 hours, and maybe that means cutting 2 positions to 3/4 instead of 1 position to half-time. And then the last thing I just want to say is I would like to signal boost my fantastic child's thought that when the budget work is done, maybe not something you want to take on right now, I'd really like to ask that you find a way to add teen representatives to the board in some type of advisory capacity. It might not seem like a huge deal in a grander sense, but I think that it's really important to recognize that there is a huge demographic of people in our town, and if we want our youth to stay here or to move back here when they're done so that our community doesn't continue aging and we have an elder community instead of a younger one, the way to do that is to make it a lively and exciting place to live, and the way to do that is to tap into the brains of the people who want that, which would be our teens. Thanks.
Bethany, I'll just note that people 16 and older can run for select board.
We are hyper aware of that, and also the reality is that homework and extracurricular activities do take precedence when you're in high school. So I know they can run, and I'm not necessarily, I know she's not asking for a seat on the board, but maybe a place at the table, and it doesn't have to just be one because obviously they are busy. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was a valid point.
All right, Abby, let's hear from Abby and then we'll go to Zoom.
Abby Manukin, District 8. I want to appreciate the work that went into revising this budget and particularly looking at each department and the top 3 departments with the biggest expenses to make sure that there were cuts looked at everywhere. I really appreciate that. I am here to advocate for restoring the sustainability coordinator to full-time for some of the reasons stated. I was also part of the RTM that created this position, and I take offense to changing the name to revenue generator. I do understand that that is a big part of what the current position may look like, but I do not believe that that is what the body of RTM developed that position for, and I think there's a lot of potential for that position, maybe that hasn't even been realized yet. But I think with the climate crisis ever growing, it's really short-sighted to make what is now a full-time position with benefits, make it part-time, attracting potentially less qualified people, and putting our town at greater risk for being less responsive to climate emergencies that are going to be happening more and more. So I do understand that this position has been primarily focused on attaining grants, and I think that is one reason why we should keep it. But I also think there's real value in what the intention of the position. And I don't agree with what Liz said, that each department is doing that on their own and we don't need that. I think that the position was created so that somebody in a town-wide way was taking a deeper look at how we as a town can adapt and respond to climate issues. And without that position, I don't think that that's going to happen. And so I think the fact that it pays for itself is great, and let's do more on that, because we're only going to have more climate emergencies. This is not an issue that's resolving on its own. Thanks.
All right, to Zoom.
All right, we have Gemma Seymour.
Gemma Seymour, RTM District 8. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
I'd like to start by saying that I ran for RTM on a platform of equity and growth for Brattleboro. I know that we have to invest in our future if we want or expect revenue growth in our future, so I'm not necessarily afraid of tax increases, so long as we're getting good value for our money, offsetting private costs with public costs, and investing in growing our town. I see the new proposed budget lists an assumed 400% increase in police department outside revenue. Please explain this. I have no idea what that means. I agree with Dick DeGray and Randy Blodgett in that it may be unwise to not have an assistant town manager able to step in if needed. I've been a business technology consultant for a long time, and I've always advocated, both as a consultant and as an employee responsible for managing large-scale IT infrastructure projects, for always having a junior lead just in case. We're being told that there are $504,000 in salary eliminations and reductions, but it's my understanding that the consequence of these reductions is, at least in part, a dramatic increase in outsourcing, contracting, or consultant spending. There's $90,000 of new spending for professional services in the finance department, set against a reduction of $106,000 for not filling the finance director position. The last proposed budget showed a large increase in spending as a result of deferring filling the IT coordinator position at $98,000. If this is resulting in a net increase in expenditures or even only a mild decrease, it would be my preference to have those positions filled by employees rather than spending that money on outside expertise. This seems like a false economy to me if the net savings from eliminating these positions is really only $20,000 to $40,000. On that note, I have to question the proposed salary increases for certain department heads. 12.2% increase in the police department head salary, 9.2% increase in the department head salary for the town manager's office, 8.7% for the fire department head, 7.6% for the HR department head, 7.1% for the Public Works department head. These are large yearly increases, far above the salary increases for any other department. The year-over-year inflation rate is less than 3% in the Consumer Price Index, so these are multiples or what would be considered a cost of living increase. I see an assumption of 22% reduction in heating fuel and 17.1% in electric expenses for the libraries. How? What happened to the expenditures we are expecting for the new trash receptacles? I don't see them in either the proposed fiscal year 26 budget or the provisional fiscal year 27. Please explain how the already massive 17.9% increase in the police department budget is now an even larger 21.3% increase when we're being told that $145,000 was cut from the police budget. This is a $617,000 increase in the police department budget, which alone accounts for over 32% of the overall increase in spending in this newly proposed budget. I have made no secret about the fact that as a voting member of RTM, this level of increase is wholly unacceptable to me. Finally, I have yet to hear any clear explanation for how the previous budget estimates turned out to be so wrong. Someone, somewhere needs to come clean about how this happened and who is responsible for these errors. Thank you.
All right, let's go to Steve and then we'll take our break.
Hi, can you hear me? Power on.
On your device.
Can you hear me? Oh, that's hold on.
I think you're okay now.
Let's start with your last name, Steve.
Steve, we can't hear you.
You don't have two devices open, do you, Steve? If you do, you'll need to close one.
All right.
Can you hear me now?
Oh. Try
No,
speaking again, Steve.
Steve, we're still having problems. We're going to go break and come back at 8:15, and maybe we can hear you then. Okay. Okay, everybody.
I don't think it wasn't until we had the Ian never used it. Good to have a coffee.
Wouldn't it?
I'm sure, actually, there is a coffee maker in there. Oh, Keurig. That's what it's been for.
How's Steve? Steve, are you ready to join us?
Yeah, here it is.
Hi, Steve. Please tell us your last name.
Oh, good.
No.
Oh, now I can't hear him. Oh, sorry.
Sorry, Steve.
Steve, you know, you could call in. Right? Right, Seth? He can do that.
Yeah, phone call.
Yeah.
Yep, just check the agenda. The call should be on there. The phone number should be on there.
All right. Have we heard from everyone who wants to speak? Go ahead.
Will Cram, District 8 RTM. I know that each of you received a letter on Tuesday from Drew Hazelton on behalf of Rescue, Inc. The first sentence of which reads, "In recent weeks, we have once again been witnessing incomplete, inaccurate, and misleading information about our organization as Brattleboro town staff attempt to justify the expenses of the new fire-based ambulance service." And Mr. Hazelton
Mr.
goes
Cram,
on to...
let me interrupt you. You're talking about a contractor who had a contract with the town. He no longer has a contract with the town. And our fire chief discussed information that was presented in his contract bid. I don't think it's appropriate to discuss it any further. And if you'd like to discuss it with our town manager and our fire chief, you're welcome to. But it's not germane to this budget discussion.
Well, I disagree. It is germane because...
Well, I
in the
don't.
town- in
And
the
guess
town-
what?
In the town manager's memo of April 18th, on page 8, he said that the fiscal year 26 cost of Rescue, Inc. was $477,143. That was a blatant misrepresentation, as
Mr.
Mr.
Cram,
Hazelton
Mr.
points
Cram,
out.
Mr. Cram.
$55,846.
Mr. Cram, I will not have this discussion. It is not germane to the budget. We've had 8 meetings discussing the budget, and we're going to continue to discuss the budget.
Now, I
Thank
know-
you very much.
Now,
Your time is up.
I know that only 2 of you were involved in the decision
I
to
will not
terminate
have this
the
discussion, Mr.
relationship with
Cram.
Rescue.
Mr. Cram, please be seated.
This is the first budget that we've considered
Madam Chair.
since the fire
All
department
right, we're going
assumed
into recess.
responsibility for EMS on July 1st.
Mr. Cram, we are not having this discussion.
And I wonder how much smaller this budget would be if we had Rescue as our
Mr. Cram.
EMS provider.
Please sit down so we can resume our meeting. All right, Select Board, let's have a discussion based on the comments that we've heard. Would anyone like to discuss? Oh, Steve, are you back?
Yes, I am back if I'm able to speak, if you can hear me. God almighty right here. Stephen Peterson, District 7.
Thank you.
Just a couple benign comments. First of all, If there were a full job description of what exactly the sustainability coordinator does, I think it might help a lot of people to kind of visualize better which option is best. Is this person who's trying to save the environment overall in purchasing, or is this someone who's trying to save Brattleboro from fires and floods? Those are two different things. I'd love to know what the real goal of the job is. The other thing is, I'm hearing a lot of people with great ideas, and it seems to me this town may be ripe for some sort of volunteer initiative, whether it's the teen initiative. It seems like I wonder if there's a way to plug some budget. Nice to have some volunteer activities. Just a couple thoughts, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No.
Hi, Nell Mayo, District 8. I just had one thing that popped into mind when Peter had proposed a perhaps merging of the reduced sustainability coordinator with some assistant town manager positions. And though it does seem like perhaps the utility fund expenditures might be the way that that's veering, just that in my understanding of the savings, which I believe were pegged at $37K from that position in comparison with the town manager salary of like $140K, in terms of what you might be asking from someone and taking on those responsibilities, it could be disproportionate. I did also appreciate Mr. Potter's talking about the cost that was built in for potential unemployment in that reduction and how that could, if that was not spent out in unemployment, could go towards the benefits. And then this is something that I would like to offer like in the utmost good faith, just from having sat at most of the meetings in the last month. My interpretation of what Oscar had brought up at the beginning of the meeting was perhaps a questioning of the confidence in the numbers surrounding the potential addition of the fire employees. Because of the newness, because of, I think, what has been echoed of the uncertainty in budgets and the potential unknown factors. And the way that I saw it interpreted was to talk about the values behind this decision. And I think he had attempted to clarify, but it seems to be something that I've witnessed as a bit of a pattern in the meetings over the past month, of a questioning of numbers and of a questioning of, like, are these costs or revenues we can depend on? Are they certain? And then it gets turned into the moral or ethical reasons behind the choice, which of course factor in, right? But I don't think that Oscar was asking for the same information to be reiterated. I have it in my notes, $292K for 3, like 260 budgeted, 720 actuals over time, I think it was probably what I've heard echoed in some other people of, what if we increase the staff size and it doesn't solve the problem and then people don't want to fire staff, right? And I hear everything else, and I'm not even trying to espouse an opinion on the issue, but it's just a conversational pattern I've seen, or I feel that I've seen. And I appreciate all your work, and I appreciate the ability to comment as a member of the public. Thank you.
Oscar, yes.
Just a point of order, and I'm sorry if this seems a little something. That with Will just happened very quickly. I know nobody wants to hear, to relitigate the whole rescue decision. As someone who wasn't part of any history there or anything, it felt like that heated up very quickly in a way that I wasn't totally sure about. And I think that the rescue numbers do play into the conversation around fire. Certainly the uncertainty out there in the community is the idea of adding new fire positions. Are they for fire needs? Are they covering sort of hidden EMS overtime costs? Are we rock solid about those numbers? So I'm not totally sure about how that went down. And
we got a letter from a former contractor that provided service to our town, essentially trying to open up a settled matter. And when our fire chief came here, he presented the information that was in a prior bid for contract. And there's no dispute of that. And it's a stretch that I feel is beyond germane to have that discussion when we're having our 8th meeting about the budget. And we're getting to a point where we are seeking public comment and actually attempting to vote on a budget. To bringing up a settled matter is inappropriate.
That's fair, and I guess I'd like to advocate. I know there is long history on that topic, but I think maybe there could have been a more peaceful solution. That's all I'm
Well,
suggesting.
I asked him not to speak, and he refused. Jackie?
Just on that point, Jackie Reese, District 9, RTM. Just on that point, those of us who have been, not to all of these, but even just some of them or most of them, extended arguments and extended statements they're tiresome, they're a strain. So I know it was loud, but I agree with stopping people from talking when what they're saying is not germane to what we're talking about right now. I just got to say that. The other thing I think about this budget, I mean, one of the reasons why we're not sure about the numbers is that we don't know what we're going to need as far as fire and EMS goes. We don't know what we're going to need as far as safety downtown goes. It may increase. And I think that cutting in these two areas, we need our downtown. We need our downtown to be safe. We need our people to be safe. Whatever it is that is causing the rise, we need to cover it in order to not slide back. The way the town is now is so much better than it was even just 5 years ago, which is when I saw the change start to happen. So I think we need to keep that in consideration. If you're considering not hiring these 3 other fire department staff and going with overtime, what's going to happen if the overtime increases? Are they going to not go to fires? Are they going to not go to rescue people who are, in need of hospitalization or in need of immediate treatment? You get somebody like me who, literally was saved, and by Golden Cross, by the way. It was not by rescue. It was Golden Cross when that was happening. It was immediate. Their response to my situation was immediate, and I find that is valuable, and that there are people who I potentially knew, people who actually knew the person that was there with me. This is extremely valuable on these safety issues. And then if we don't take care of our downtown, the whole place is going to go. I mean, I don't mean to be hyperbolic, but the way it was 5 years ago was kind of crazy. It was very, very difficult. And if we need to increase the number of hours, I would prefer to have 3 other people going on to overtime than the people who are already putting in 57 hours a week having to do 60 or 64. It's just illogical if you're talking about people's health and lives and the safety of downtown, which is what we're here for.
Thank you, Jackie.
We have Mr. Ozer on the line.
Bob Ozer? Bob Ozer, you have the last word, and then we'll deliberate.
Hello, Bob Ozer, District 9. And I'll make this very brief. I wasn't going to talk, but I know that if this were a public meeting, that there are Robert's rules that would go to the point of how you challenge whether something is germane or not. This is not a public meeting. It's a meeting that's held in the public. So I wonder, as a point of order, what would be the procedure for challenging whether something is germane? Second point, and then I'll end, is what is the actual cost of the EMS service provided through fire? Thank you.
So usually I've been reading out very boring rules about how to conduct a select board meeting with public input. And basically, the chair has responsibility to determine if comments are overly repetitive or not germane, and I have done so. And it's within our rules of procedure. I can fish them out if you'd like. Maybe I will. In the meantime, we had testimony when the fire chief was here. He referred to that number, and for John, do you have that?
I do. It's the net of the expense minus revenue for transport costs is projected at $108,750 in fiscal '26.
Is there an overtime line item in that? Not, I'm just asking if it's, yeah, okay.
It's part of the whole
Okay.
thing, yep.
All right.
John, does that include any depreciation on all the equipment and everything?
I believe that was factored in, Randy, yep.
And it would presumably include the capital cost of ambulance replacement and stuff like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And but you just got to remember that most of that is coming in as reimbursements, so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. I'm not finding the one about germane, but it is the chair's decision to determine whether a comment is germane and/or repetitive. And the chair has a process for addressing any disruption to a meeting and may bypass any or all steps when they determine in their sole discretion that a deviation from the process is warranted. I can call the meeting to order and remind the members of the Select Board and the public of the applicable rules of procedure. I can declare a recess or table an issue under consideration. I can ask a disorderly person to leave the meeting room for the remainder of the meeting. I could request law enforcement assistance in removing a disorderly person from the meeting, whether their conduct substantially impairs the effective conduct of a meeting for the remainder of the meeting. Or I could adjourn or postpone and continue the meeting to a place and time certain or close the meeting. So, let's deliberate, shall we? Does anyone want to continue the discussion about the assistant town manager, for example?
Yeah, I can weigh in on that.
Yeah.
So one of the things, if I'm allowed to resent anything, will be the fact that my mind is made up. That will be the thing that I resent, being told from people who know me on the tertiary that my mind is made up. And addressing the town manager role, I think we all know my position on cutting anybody and what that means, and burnout has been, my words have been thrown back at me. So I'm not a fan of any of this. However, we've been charged with lowering the budget. I have been told that it is impossible to do so without cutting positions. I think that those positions could be better charged to do things. Again, I'm going to use the word revenue again, but we could employ those people back in. So the one thing I do trust is when John sits down with the department heads and the department heads tell him these are the places in which we can find some efficiencies. we take them at their word. If John tells us that we can take him at his word, that it's going to be a difficult year, that we can't have an assistant town manager for 1 year's time, 2 years' time, maybe it works out, maybe it doesn't, then I take him at his word. But I will agree that of all the positions that we have presented, this is the one I like the least. If I thought an additional $140,000 would make it through RTM, I would gladly put it in. I'm going to need to hear more than from 2 people, 3 people in the room, that is a thing that is not representative of the town of Brattleboro. Can we live without that $140,000? Or is it money better spent? Do we do as Mr. DeGray suggested and put it back in the budget and let RTM pull it out? Maybe that's the course of action. Maybe that's the play we make. I don't want this guy burned out. I don't want anything to happen to him. But since we did refund the bus budget, there is that hanging over his head. So, sorry, man. So I am not opposed to putting that line item back in and seeing if it is something that RTM can stomach. So, and have them tell us that we can't have it. I'm okay with that.
Colleagues? Oscar?
I think putting it in and saying RTM can take it out, and RTM can make up its own mind. I don't think anyone up here is saying that the budget, that we're making this decision unless RTM wants to change it. That's just a reality of the process. I think, we're looking for economies, and we could fund the position in a smaller way with the special projects manager. We would be, instead of saving $140K, we'd be saving $28K. That's a huge difference. We don't have a lot of unfilled positions where we can look to make cuts without firing somebody. And this is an area where town staff who would know best thinks we can make do. I think in the apocalyptic scenario where John disappears in a flash of light and we have no assistant town manager, what would happen is the many veteran department heads we have would get together and one of them would step up. That's what would actually happen in that eventuality. So I'm not particularly concerned about the question of succession. I think it'll be a strain on John and a strain on the department heads. And everything we have in here is a strain on somebody. And I think I think I'm there on it. And in a year, we may regret it. In a year, we may say it was tough and it's time to put it back in. But these are the kind of decisions that everyone's been clamoring for us to make, and everyone will get up and say, or when I run into anybody, they will say 3 things every time. They will say, I don't envy your job, usually with a smile. Then they will say, you've got to bring the tax rate down. And then they will say, here are the 2, 3, 4 things that I'm telling you can't change. And that list of things is different for every person. So we're trying to find our way. And I think this is an opportunity and we think we can make it work, so.
Do you have a position, Amanda?
I think what Oscar said was really well said and completely accurate. I think a lot of good things have come out of this meeting, helpful things. The idea of maybe a teen committee, that was youth committee would be cool. Idea on, maybe waiting on the firefighters. I think that I have completely good faith in John Potter. I'm going to pray every day that you don't get hit by a bus. And
you're having a rough night, buddy.
And that was one of those comments. Was like, oh gosh. Anyway, it's a strategy for the moment, and it appears to be a necessary strategy to appeal to the because not only are the staff departments working hard and the department heads and John and the taxpayers are working very hard, and they're working very hard to be able to afford their tax bills. And there are some fundamental changes that have to happen in Brattleboro. We have to increase our tax base. We have to increase our grand list. Those aren't going to happen overnight. So this compromise, I think, is a strong one.
Did you have something to say before I say what I have to say?
Go for it.
All right. Just a point of clarification. So in the same thinking, and maybe somebody can answer this for me. So we go to RTM without $140,000, speaking procedurally, of course, not about a person. Can then RTM add that money back in?
Advisorily, yes.
Yeah, they could.
But we would do it, I think.
Right.
They would not have the opportunity to target.
It's not a line item thing, but we can just,
Yes.
yep, okay.
Yeah. Isaac, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I mean, just out of respect for the three people who did speak about the assistant town manager role, I mean, and I have expressed before my concern with expanding services and hollowing out our support in the middle for that in the core. And so it would be helpful if you're able to, Mr. Potter, share what are the functions of the assistant town manager, anything that you think will not be be able to be picked up by department heads, or potential losses. And you mentioned, there was mention of a special projects manager. Did we explore that position as a board already? That idea of a special projects manager? I don't want to relitigate something if we've already discussed it, but we've had 8 meetings, and so I might be forgetting something.
Yeah, so, yeah, I presented that as one of the things I was thinking about for that position while we were holding it to benefit this fiscal year, was 3 possibilities. One was getting the savings of $140,000. The second was to convert the position to a special projects manager to cover a lot of the large townwide type projects, like implementing the new solid waste system, doing parking improvements, doing the work at the transportation center, things like that. There's 5 or 6 or 7 additional ones like of that scale that are at some level of progress. The idea was to convert that position to something that somebody could fulfill those roles, those project management roles for the town, that the assistant town manager had as a portion of their duties. As I mentioned before, the expertise of the financial consultant that we're looking to have the board consider at your next meeting, that expertise covers another big chunk of what the assistant town manager did in terms of budgeting and putting together the numbers, figuring out what all the, estimating what all the increases would be. That was work that the assistant town manager had done in the past. And then the other things are things like coordinating legal services across the departments. That's something that the assistant town manager has done in the past and I'm doing now. What else? There's a myriad of other just hard to put your finger on type things, and things that I'm still learning, like, the assistant town manager used to approve all these grants and move all these grants through the system, and now I'm having to figure out how to do that. It's stuff like that. I can get you the job description if that would be helpful, but that's a pretty good summary of what that position does.
Thank you. In the interest of time, I'm not going to ask for that. I will echo the concern that Peter brought up about burnout, because you are the town manager role is, there's not an organized contingency. There's rallies for the library. There's people who show up in numbers and speak passionately in support of our police department and our fire department. We don't have like an organized group that's speaking up for core administrative services for our town. with the exception of maybe folks who have served in town government.
And a few bus drivers. Sorry.
But the point is that I just don't think we can underestimate the importance of that role and of supporting that role. And so if there's so I would like us to entertain the possibility, and just thinking about, like you mentioned, just a bunch of projects, like that could be a full-time position just to deal with the solid waste. So, and the parking improvements, I would really like to be able to talk to somebody about the parking system and what my challenges when I go to pay with my app, and not have to bother the town manager about it. So I'm curious to see if there's interest on the board in exploring that idea of a special projects manager as something that would be able to take off some of the load off of the town manager so that he could be able to do the grants administrative work, the grants approval and all of that.
Well, I have a suggestion, and that is, we're weighing the importance of assistant town manager, and I think assistant town manager is very important. But I think I think we're scraping together, the needs and the support. You talked about the library, but there's another lobby for the sustainability coordinator, and there's no lobby for the assistant town manager except for what we've heard tonight. But I think assistant town manager is a more critical, basic municipal function than the sustainability coordinator. So if you're weighing, are we actually going to reduce staff? And are we weighing which position is more critical to the functioning of the town? My hand goes up for assistant town manager. But I think that we have opportunity here to say, maybe we should scrap both of those positions and focus on what John is identifying as a need, which is the special projects person. And that way we're allowing him to kind of refocus these positions that suit him and how he sees the management of the town. And if we have the auditor serving as a consultant on the budgetary things, and John has assembled a team, and he's the one that re-examined the budget and found whatever lapses were present. And he has this budget team that he feels comfortable with, using people from HR and using people from finance and using, the former auditor. That's a team that he feels comfortable with going forward. And to do with OpenGov, the short-term and the long-term planning that we all want. And so that means that the special projects person would fulfill these areas that we're all talking about the assistant town manager had. And I think it's much more efficient to have that person, whoever that may be, that policy position, take the place of both the assistant town manager and the sustainability coordinator, and be really more focused on what special projects the town needs that John Potter will direct as town manager them to do. I think that's much more efficient. And I think that's something that we should seriously consider right now.
Can I weigh in? First up, I love the fact that you brought the fact that everybody seems to have a rallying team except this guy, right? So, thank you for recognizing that. I think that's really important. To Oscar's point, yeah, 100%. I hear what you're saying. Like, our department heads are strong, they're smart, and they know how to run their towns and their departments. But I feel as though that suggestion is super reactive as opposed to being proactive, and they would do it. I agree, 100%. They would get it done, they would figure it out, and we would lick our wounds and come out okay. So in a compromise and all that, I think what Liz has just said is got some bona fides, right? Has got a little weight to it and has some substance. And I would really be interested in sort of entertaining that. And I don't know what that costs, and I don't know what those numbers are, but.
Well, I bet you we could all weigh in while John figured that out. Oscar?
Well, I think, first of all, when we talk about risk, I think we should also talk about that, yes, it's good to have redundancy and all these plans and reserves. We're also talking about an incredibly unlikely event, which is the overnight need to replace the town manager. So we want to be, think about risk in a, not just identify the possibility of a risk, but also, be real about how improbable it is, which is why I think we have a backstop for it, and it's not a huge concern for me because of how unlikely I feel like it is. I think the position of assistant town manager, hugely valuable. Special projects coordinator, or whatever it's called, also hugely valuable. If I remember my numbers, the savings, if we go from assistant town manager to special projects coordinator, went from 140K in savings to about 28K in savings. The assistant town manager is, in many ways, by far the most substantial cut that has been made by this select board or the previous select board in terms of, it's a real ongoing cost. It's not a full-time to part-time thing. It's not deferring capital work. It's not being paid. This would be one of the big, this would be sort of a centerpiece cut that we would be removing. There is probably room for it because we asked John for what, 330K, and he came back with 470.
Yeah.
We could just about do it and still go back to RTM with something a little lower than 12.1. But again, when I talk about what people have been asking of me, not only does everyone want the taxes to go down, but there's a big group of people who out there who say if we don't go back to RTM with something measurably lower, that's their number one concern. And yeah, those risks go back up for us if we come back at 11.8 or something. So I feel like it's something I can live with for a year with the full cut. I certainly, in many ways, it'll be a relief to me if we put one of these positions back in because that's great. It'll be hugely valuable, but it's just another Jenga piece we're pulling out. So I worry about that.
Good image.
Thank you.
Amanda? Do you have any?
I'm going to settle for now. Yeah, I spoke.
Okay. All right. So what we have really is a discussion about this position, but where it leads to is the overall discussion of the budget. And so I'm not quite sure how to structure this, but I just think that we should, we brought up a couple of questions earlier that we have not voted on. And so let's go back to them, all right? Are we comfortable with the fire positions as presented in the draft budget? All people in favor of the fire positions as stated in the draft budget, please raise your hand.
Aye.
Sure. Okay. Are we comfortable with the assistant town manager position being cut from the budget. And let's group them together, the assistant town manager and the sustainability coordinator. Are we comfortable in those decisions? We need to talk about it some more.
I will vote differently, probably.
I think
on
those are
decisions.
two different topics. I
They're
agree.
two different, okay? Let's hear from John then. John, do you have any insights for us on what you would prefer in terms of the sustainability and the town manager? Town manager first, assistant town manager.
Well, I mean, I don't know what the call is with RTM. I was thinking you needed to find some significant savings, and that's why I think we can make do without an already vacant position. I appreciate the thought on a special projects manager, and I've calculated what the difference would be there if you wanted to add that back in. It would bring your overall expenditures up to $25,085,858, and the tax levy you would need to do that would be $19,734,647. That would then increase from a 10.8%, which is in the draft budget before you, to an 11.5%. So it's significant to consider that, and I just really don't know how to weigh that politically. I just have that information for you.
Okay, so anyone want to talk more, or should we have this preliminary vote about the assistant town manager?
I just also want to say that some of these decisions they're not just, it's not just that I'm unsure, it's that I think they're very close. And we have to decide one way or the other. We have to say which of these, for example, 3 choices on assistant town manager, I don't know what's better, saving $140K for the taxpayers or having an assistant town manager, and I'm going to choose in a minute. And those are very close decisions for me. So it's not just that there's uncertainty about what I think the best choice is, it's that I think I know and that I think they're very close, which is difficult.
Well, I just laid out, if I had my druthers, we'd cut both positions and have a special projects manager. But that's really not what John is saying. John is saying if you restore the assistant town manager, we're back to 11.8?
That's
what the project manager.
No, that's the special projects manager would be
Okay.
11.6 with the
Yeah.
full assistant town manager.
So, that just doesn't cut it with me in terms of having a budget that we can pass the test with RTM. And so I think that we, going forward, need to be vigilant of any savings. And we might need to, at some point when John cries uncle, step up and do the right thing. In terms of, allowing, for a half a year.
And we'll rely on you and hope that you will say, this has to change, because, so.
You'll see the wheels coming off.
Okay, well, good.
Isaac, did you have a comment?
I think that Representative Town Meeting wanted us to take another look at this budget and to address some of the concerns around mid-year spending, depleting reserves, lack of multi-year financial plan. And at one of our early meetings, we decided that we're going to work towards doing that. We address those concerns. And I think that we've had these 8 meetings. We've revisited some of these topics. We've asked these questions. There's been a further turning of stones to see what's going on. There were errors that were discovered, right? And we found this hundreds of thousands of dollars that hadn't been accounted for when the auditor took a look at it. And John, with the auditor. So that's, I have more confidence in this new budget, having looked at that, having had these further reviews. Having a plan that we know is going to result in the wheels coming off doesn't, to me, sound like the responsible thing for us to do. I would prefer to go to representative town meeting with a budget that we're confident in and that we believe in. And if it's a 11.5% increase in the municipal tax rate, and representative town meeting says that's too high, we need it to be reduced by, to 10.8%. Because, and we know that line item is the difference, and we come back, we do have a new budget.
Yeah, I mean, you're certainly entitled to your opinion. I do not share it.
Well, can I just ask a question? I mean, so as you're proposing that, I mean, is that something that you could sell to the people who voted for you?
Well, I could try to sell. I don't know if people would buy
sell's like recognizing that sell is probably the wrong word, but just, I mean, is that something that you feel would fly?
I think a lot of the people who I talk to would like to have seen a broader reduction in personnel across departments. I think that there was concerns about the 20% increase in one department, and 20% increase in the budget of the police department. I think there are folks who would like to have seen at least one of those positions reduced. I mean, I think that's really what people are a good portion of the town is going to be looking at. I don't think they're going to necessarily see if it's a double-digit increase, if it's 10.8% or 11.5%. I don't know if that's going to be the deciding thing about whether they vote for this. But I think that people will have appreciated that we have taken the time and we've explored all these different options.
I hope you're right.
Well, I'm going with the budget as presented, the 10 point, what is it?
10.8.
10.8. Go ahead.
Just a quick comment. I think if we thought the wheels would come off in 6 months, we wouldn't do it. I think it's more, we think it'll work, but if it isn't working, John will tell us and we'll make a change.
Yeah, exactly. I wasn't saying
Yes.
they would come off. I was saying you would see it if they came
Yes.
off. So.
And you might even tell us first.
And I might tell you first.
I am happy, personally, I'm at the full cut for the assistant town manager.
All right, let's take a vote on that. Who feels that the loss of the assistant town manager position as presented is acceptable? Please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
What do you know? Okay, so then the last item for discussion is the sustainability coordinator position, which was moved to half-time. And is there a vote on that?
I think I've said my piece, so.
There was a suggestion that the position be moved to, I can't even explain it.
To 30 hours per week.
30 hours in this general fund budget and a remainder in the utility fund, and the benefits being paid, but the unemployment not being paid.
I think the utility fund part is still speculative. That would be a hope.
Okay, so 30%.
We got a lot of that going.
30% benefits, no unemployment.
I see John doing math.
John's doing the math. We'll keep talking till he's added it
You
all
said
up.
30%, you meant 30 hours a week, right?
30 hours.
Yes,
Okay.
30 hours a week.
Because that is the minimum that they can work and still
Right.
And to the audience members shaking their heads in disbelief.
I am.
Yeah.
Really am.
I'm not criticizing you for doing it. I'm saying that
You're noting it.
I'm noting it, and I'm saying that I think the value's there. I think that if someone brings in 60 to 80K a year, that's
And the question is whether it's there.
right, of course, and that's an open question.
And so,
Yeah, and while we're discussing it, I did want to, there was a comment from the public about not taking away the word sustainability that I think was misconstrued. That statement came from the idea that our current presidential administration is like clear-cutting things that say sustainability or environment even, or
female.
Yeah, and so that was in the spirit of perhaps not the job description per se, but in reality, but than just a name. So anyway, just want to clarify that.
How do we feel about strategic resource manager?
Well, let's see if there's maybe
Okay.
interest in doing this.
All right, so let's see. The proposal on the table is to maintain a sustainability coordinator for 30 hours a week with benefits, and that would garner a savings in the budget of something that is different from the budget that was proposed.
Yep.
John?
This may be slightly off, but I'm estimating it would be an total expenditure now of $25,008,672, requiring a property tax levy of $19,657,461, which is an 11% increase over the last budget.
So we go from 10.8
10.8 to 11.
So that sounded like 35K of the savings going away, which is the bulk of it, which is mostly because we would be eliminating, we would be bringing back the benefits.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
All right. All select board members in favor of that idea?
Can I ask one more? Is that
That's an 11-point increase on the tax rate?
Yes.
Yep, 11 flat. Yep.
Is that actually feasible? Is it feasible to have that like arrangement for an employee of the 30 hours with benefits? Is that
it's
something that's like HR wise is
It's
something we can do?
The difference between full-time and that is probably pretty nominal. I just used the number that we had taken out before at full-time, so it's in that neighborhood.
And there are...
So this is essentially putting that position back in at full-time.
saving a quarter of their salary, I would assume. None of the benefits.
He said nominal, so it's really nothing.
But there is currently an employee, I think, in the finance department who works 32.5 with benefits. So I think it's not an unheard of arrangement.
What is the expectation with the full-time? How many hours per week?
37 and a half.
37 and a half. Okay, so we're
Or
talking about
no,
7 and a half
So
more
20%
hours
of the
difference.
A day, essentially.
Right.
All right, who is in favor? Yes?
I had a question. So this memo that Stephen had shared with us says that there's $60,000 to $80,000 in potential that could potentially be recouped from the fully funded project that's moving forward at Brooks Memorial Library with the clean energy tax credit, it looks like. And additionally, potentially $7,500 that could be claimed on a electric vehicle or some tax credit. And I'm curious, are those funds that you believe that are potentially accessible and that position could be helpful with?
Yep, that's a area that we've not had the ability to explore, but this position would have that as a priority to try to find that funding.
And would they be able to?
Well, let me just ask you this. I thought that position was not fully capable of assessing those tax benefits, and that they were looking to the financial people to do that. So is there the bandwidth within the financial people, and so therefore, is that a realistic assumption?
I think we were looking at hiring a consultant to help him with that, so.
And I think that was a one-time cost associated with setting up accounts with the IRS to be able to do this kind of stuff on an ongoing basis. I think, yeah, all of that work sort of has to happen in collaboration with other departments. I'm not suggesting he'll snap his fingers, or anyone will snap their fingers and an 80K check will show up, but there's real opportunity, and in particular, the clean energy tax credits were extended recently and I think are relatively as stable as anything can be these days federally. But
All right, so who wants to vote to essentially restore the sustainability position with benefits?
at 30 hours.
30 hours and benefits and ultimately at a tax rate of 11% increase.
I'd like to discuss.
I had a question. It looks like Amanda might have something.
You want me to go first?
No, I'm happy to say, but John
Amanda
also
goes
has
first
his
this
hand up.
time
So I feel
because,
like
because Isaac went,
John
yes.
has his hand up.
So I understand that at 29 hours per week, we would still have a savings. That's the break, that's kind of the break point, I guess, 29.
There's no
Because it's
benefits
not
at that point.
benefits?
No, there would be savings on the salary, so.
Wait, so I don't think I'm understanding.
So there would be some savings from a 29-hour-a-week. That would be VEMR's, but maybe not the health. That's probably what it is. Yeah, so that would probably be the savings is the health.
Amanda was going to go.
Okay. I have some discomfort with the idea of hiring an individual who would require a consultant to get the income output that they're promising. To me, that is very complicated. So the position, in my opinion, should encapsulate also the work of getting the tax credits and exploring ways to get that without the town hiring a consultant to help the individual doing that. That individual has the resourcefulness to be able to do that independently as part of the position and collaboratively work with the finance department because it seems that that's an essential piece we're being sold, that this is what the result will be, but yet there's one more barrier to actually attaining that. Is that potentially possible?
Good point.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the financial expertise side of tax credits that we don't have the skills on staff to do, and that's what a consultant would probably be needed to set that up.
Isaac.
I'm thinking about what we had talked about, a special projects coordinator, special projects director doing, and thinking about your proposal, Liz, of having that replace these two assistant town manager and sustainability coordinator positions. What I'm wondering is there a possibility of, given our concerns about what may be delayed or challenging to get done with the assistant town manager position being eliminated, is there some of that coordination that we talked about with the special projects, for instance, waste removal, which includes recycling and compost, that could be the sustainability program could be tasked with project managing or helping? I mean, I don't know if these are the skills. I don't know what the skill sets or the job description is of the sustainability coordinator, but wondering if there is. If some of that work could be absorbed so that we would be addressing the gaps.
I think they're very different positions. And I think what we should do is vote. And in the course of the year, the town manager may bring to us some sort of a combination of hybrid positions that he thinks might be valuable. And for now, we should go with what we have. And so let's have a vote of the people on the select board who think that the sustainability coordinator position should be at 29 hours. And that includes VEMR's and not medical. And we would save a certain amount of money.
Yeah, it's under 37,000, under that.
Okay. So let's vote on that. Who wants to do that? All select board members in favor of maintaining the sustainability coordinator at 29 hours a week. Yeah, that's what he was just talking about.
Yeah, I don't think anyone.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'm happy to, cards on the table. This doesn't have to be a mystery. If it's 30 plus hours and there are benefits involved, I think the position can sort of survive, and I'm interested in that as a compromise. I'm also, I really just want to say again, I am not trying to force this board through anything it doesn't want to do. I'm just telling you where I think.
Oh, don't worry. No.
Okay.
I want
Yeah.
everyone to say what they think.
Okay, great.
I'm interested in the original plan, which is to make it a part-time position.
Okay.
And we get the cost savings in the budget.
Is that what you proposed that we vote on, though? Isn't that what you just
That was
proposed?
29.
No, that was 29.
So this, okay.
So, John, what is in the draft budget?
The draft budget has that position at a 25-hour position with no benefits.
Okay. And so I think we pretty much voted on that when we said, does anyone want someone at 29 hours?
Well, I think Amanda
No, I
is-
think I'm just going back to the original proposal, which is what's in the draft budget,
Okay.
which creates the cost savings, some cost
Great.
savings in the draft budget.
All right. How many select board members like the position that was outlined in the draft budget for sustainability? All select board members in favor of that, please raise your hand. All right. Does anyone have another proposal? Oscar, do you have another proposal?
Well, are there 3 people who would go for 30? I will accept 30 I'm content with 30 as a compromise.
All select board.
Can I just,
Sure.
I don't know. I feel we didn't have a big enough discussion around the assistant town manager's position as we're having now around this position. Though I see the merit in this position, yeah, I'm just.
I mean, I hear you,
That's
Peter,
fair.
because to me, I think assistant town manager position or the special project manager position is much more important to the basic functioning of our municipal government. And that's how, I would vote. I would say eliminating both positions from the budget this year and working towards the special project manager, either putting money in there now or knowing that in the year we would need a special project manager. I just think that that's better.
I agree with you on the importance. If we were talking like for like, and these were $240,000 cuts, I would absolutely agree with you. But we aren't.
I want to propose a compromise, which is, could the sustainability program be incorporated in some of the key functions in terms of securing funding for sustainability? I know that's not all that position does, but could some of that be incorporated into what a special projects coordinator, manager, director does in terms of?
I don't think so. I mean, my knowledge of both roles, but let's ask John.
I mean, we could look at it. I think your better option is what I had suggested earlier about the utility work, and see if the utility would want to do the sustainability piece and bring that position back to a 30 or a 37.5, depending on what could be justified over on that side. I'm not saying that would be a definite or that we could figure it out. They want to look at the rate study. You'd have to approve utility budget with that in it. But I think that's probably the more likely path here if you're trying to keep your budget under 11%.
Okay, so that would mean us voting to keep the position at 25 hours without benefits, with unemployment, as specified in the draft budget, with the hope, not the promise, that there would be funding available within the utility budget to bring that position up to a full-time position with benefits. Is that what you're saying? So, how do we feel about that?
Are you asking me? Or all of us?
Yes, I am, Amanda. I'm asking you.
Yeah, I think that sounds appealing. I also did a quick search, and the National League of Cities and Towns actually has coursework opportunities for municipalities on capturing tax credits. So I would make it a vital part of this sustainability coordinator position for them to figure out how to help the municipality to do it and coordinate with the finance department. It really can't, we can't pass the buck to another department for something that we want to make a position successful. So, so that's a sidebar, but I think your proposal is.
But a sidebar that could lead to a conclusion of a voting on this position.
I would be comfortable with that.
Yeah, which is I think it's a good compromise.
All right, so let's vote on this compromise position that our town manager suggested of keeping the sustainability coordinator funded at the level of 25 hours a week as specified in the draft budget, with the hope, not the promise, that the utility budget can accommodate the remainder of that position and benefits. All select board members in favor of that, please raise your hand and say aye. All right then, so now we are, is there any other element that we need to discuss before we have the vote on the budget?
Give me 60 seconds to look back over things, but I don't think so.
All right, so I put my memo away. Okay, thank you, John. All right, Peter, would you like to make a motion? Oh, we made a motion earlier. Was that you?
Yeah, you did, yeah.
But we can reiterate.
Can I say
it.
no?
Yeah.
Can I say I'll wait for the bus? So, do I have to lay out the specifics?
No, just that one line.
Right here.
Oh, to approve the FY '26 general fund budget and capital plan as presented?
Yep.
Do we?
We did.
Did we change nothing?
We changed nothing.
As far as the numbers are concerned, we
We
changed
accepted the
nothing.
firefighter position, we accepted the loss of the town manager,
Okay.
and we accepted the sustainability coordinator as presented,
With hope.
with the hope,
Yes.
not the promise.
Hard to believe, but okay.
Yeah, it seems.
You know, we were all sitting right here, and
We were.
Okay,
That's why I
so-
got confused.
Peter has proposed and made a motion to approve the FY '26 general fund budget and capital plan as presented. All select board members in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you all very much. Let's have one more motion.
It's way before 11 o'clock. But I'll make, oh, you want to make the motion?
I wanted to make a motion to adjourn.
Very good.
Stole my thunder.
Isaac has made a motion to adjourn. All raise your hands.
Aye.
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 Thank you all very much. Thank you to the public. Thank you, Seth, of course. Thank you to the select board, and thank you to the town manager.
I'm the adjourn.
And translators.
Can't be worried about things like that.